Thank you for joining Chronic Curiosity today. As always, any type of interaction, comments, likes, subscribes, particularly reviews, any of those things, we really appreciate the interaction and the feedback from the audience. There is also chronic-curiosity.com where you can reach us. Send us some questions, send us some ridiculous ideas. We have some plans to talk about, well, more ridiculous things. There's also a store up on that website. You can find yourself a comfy t-shirt. That also helps support the show if you enjoy what we do. I don't know why, but thank you for being here.
It's fine. I don't know how to do any of this shit. None of it.
It seems to be working out pretty decent.
I don't know. It doesn't?
I think so.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I like it.
I mean, I had fun. I guess that's really all that matters. We started this thing and said we were just going to do it because we wanted to, right?
Yep.
It works.
Holy shit, I thought that was the start of a DMX song. I was like, we're going to go straight to honor. Yeah, there you go. There you go. I was like, that was impressive.
Rest in peace.
I know. Fucking DMX is fucking badass.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, man.
I'm a fan.
That's super fucked up. Man, once again, just come out of nowhere and just hit me with something I never expected on our own podcast, right off the rip. That was, I mean, it's not like he had complications from a heart attack, right?
That's what I heard. I didn't read about it. I don't know if there was any like secondary causes to that or.
Yeah, I didn't see anything either. But I mean, as much as I love the dude, he had some problems.
He had a pretty troubled past.
And present. I mean, I remember maybe that was one of the reasons that like I remember thinking like DMX was such a badass. Like I remember like after like his albums came out, after I was already a huge fan of him, I remember at one point like he got arrested for like or stealing some like something 1983 like Oldsmobile or something like that. And it was like, but you are a multi-millionaire.
Wow.
Why are you stealing $300 cars? Like, what?
Old habits die hard, baby.
Fucking being a gangster, man.
Gotta keep the skills sharp.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. It was just like a Sunday afternoon practice.
He probably got done watching Gone in 60 Seconds and was like, let's do this.
Exit Wounds.
Exit Wounds. That was a great movie.
Oh, great
You ever
movie.
seen Exit Wounds? That was a good one. Was
it
him and Seagal?
Seagal. That's what I was going to ask who's in it.
Gabrielle Union, I think.
Was it? Was she in Exit Wounds?
I think
know she was in Bad
was.
Boys.
Wait, was that
Asshole? What the fuck are you doing?
was that the who was Jet Li in that one or was that a different one?
I don't know. It was the cast of Exit Wounds. That was a good movie. It was a great movie. But I think it was Steven Seagal and DMX. It was like, what a fucking combo. Legends.
Old Steven Seagal.
Oh,
dude,
man.
Under Siege. What a great movie.
I don't know if I've ever seen that one.
Stripper jumping out of a cake.
Was
Happy birthday.
You can't go wrong there, right?
Well, you probably could go wrong.
There's probably
but
ways you could go wrong. Depends on what kind of stripper it is. We talking like the 1 o'clock shift?
No.
stripper?
She was
Not AM.
prime time.
I'm saying PM. Oh, she was prime time. So she was 1
prime
AM.
time. Yeah.
Oh, there's a big difference between the
Yeah,
1
I
PM
thought
and
you meant the 1
AM.
p.m. I was like,
Yeah.
we've seen those at
Yeah.
a well, not you and me, but
I've been in New Orleans at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I know what 1 p.m. strippers look like.
yeah. I have been to a truck stop strip club, and it wasn't 1
truck
p.m.
stop.
and the 1 p.m. strippers were still stripping. That was
Well,
the quality.
Well, I think that was location more than anything.
That-
Isn't that what they say about real estate?
Yeah.
Location.
Yeah. No, one of my we were doing ODOT, and one of my guys fell in love.
Oh.
And he got a little too handsy, and he accidentally fish hooked one of them. And he didn't even know he did it.
Oh.
We had to leave
Sounds
it.
like you got a little too drunk.
Yes, a lot too drunk. We had to leave at a rather expedited pace.
I could see that. That's all bad. You never want to fish hook anybody.
No, no, especially a stripper.
Yeah, that's not nice.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's definitely not
They're
nice.
just there trying to get a job done.
We were profusely apologetic, and we
I would hope so.
threw lots of green and left.
If anyone tries to fish hook me, they better be apologetic and throw lots of green. I mean, that's about the only way we're gonna.
I'd take a fish hook for a few dollar bills.
Close on or close off, Cats? What are we talking here?
How much money are you giving?
It was a lot, I think we threw, honestly.
I also stand corrected. It looks like it was Eva Mendes. I'm not really sure how I got those confused, but follow up was
Gabrielle Union. Very
was
different people.
Cradle to the Grave.
Oh, okay.
That's the one you were talking
Was
about.
Jet Li, that was the one Jet Li was in?
I feel like that's more fitting.
When were these movies? Like the late 90s, early 2000s?
No, well, Exit Wounds probably was early 2000s.
They drive a sweet car in that movie?
The yellow. No, it was what's his name? With the yellow Hummer.
2001.
Okay, with the yellow Hummer. Oh, what's that dude?
Anderson.
Anthony Anderson in that?
Yes.
Is that?
He
Okay.
has that
Yeah.
giant yellow Hummer. He pulls up. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then Steven Seagal handcuffs him to his own bumper. Was
Oh,
that the
okay.
right?
I feel like I need to revisit these.
I loved that movie. I watched it a lot. I was a fan of DMX.
Oh, that was because that's when that somebody was trying to break into his car.
Okay.
And he and it was a bunch of like little hoodlums or whatever. And he was like, "You guys are doing all wrong." They're like, "What the fuck you talking about?" And he was like, "Boop, boop." And he unlocked it, and they were like, trying to beat him up. And of course, Steven Seagal kicks him ass.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. Oh yeah, it's classic.
I am not thinking Exit Wounds. Give me a second.
What do you mean? You're not thinking next week? We said next
No, I was the one where I was thinking.
What? What do you mean? What were you thinking?
The little known entrance wounds.
Entrance. I don't know what that means, but I like
I'm not going to touch it. Not going to touch it.
Oh shit. Either way.
Gabrielle Union was in Cradle to the Grave,
Okay.
not Exit Wounds. So I knew she played with DMX in one.
so
She
it was
was
the
with
second one, right?
yes.
It was
So
like
she
the-
was in Cradle to the Grave,
And
which was
Bad
in
Boys.
2003, and Bad Boys.
Bad Boys is bad. That was a great movie.
That's probably what made you want to get a Porsche, wasn't it?
No.
No?
No.
Even further back than that?
Yeah. Yeah, that old school. And I do remember when I saw that portion, the opening scene
Yeah.
of Bad Boys. I'm like, they're reading my mind. And
What
I
was, that,
young.
was what, like a 96 maybe?
I feel
911
like it was
Turbo?
like the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I want to say it was like 93 maybe. It might have been like it might have been a little later, but it was that early to mid 90s 911 Turbo with that big old beautiful simple whale tail. Oh man, what I would give to be one of those balls just dragging along. wasn't that Martin Lawrence line at the beginning where he's like he's trying to eat in the car and like he dropped the French fries down the seat.
Yeah.
He's like, "What do you mean there's no fucking cup holders in here?" It's like, "No cup holders. You spend however much money on a car." He's like, "It's a big shiny dick, and we're just the two balls just dragging along."
That's great.
I remember then they tried to get carjacked, and Tig was in it from Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, that was Tig. Well, that was
Remember
obviously
we
way before
watched
Tig
that?
was a thing.
Yeah.
I've heard we watched that afterwards. Like, oh my god, it's Tig, the guy who screws dead people.
Sons
Because
of
then it was,
Great.
I think that Frenchman was in it. He was the bad guy, and he gets in that.
Was he French?
So I
He
think
pretended to be Colombian, though,
yeah.
didn't he? Or something? No.
no. This is the first one, isn't it? Isn't the French guy in that one?
Oh, that's right. That guy was.
That dude was in a movie
Yeah, I
with.
think he pretended to be Russian.
Okay, I think that dude was in another movie with Jet Li, and I think he's actually French.
Oh, is he? Maybe.
It was
Who is the
Kiss,
bad guy?
Kiss of the Dragon. I think it was that
I
same
haven't
guy.
seen that one.
Oh, that one's awesome.
seen
There's a song he fights this big black dude in that movie. Dude, just straight jacked. In that song, Neptunes, "Ooh baby, you want me? We can get this lap dance here for free." Dude, it's a great fight scene. But you remember he drives that Shelby Cobra?
Yes.
Yes,
That
I-
like 60. Was it
65, probably 65. So, dude, I've actually been looking at those. There's a lime green one that's beautiful.
Stop.
Up in Michigan. Why not? Why not?
You and your lime green. Who was the bad guy in the first Bad Boys? Can you throw it up on there so we can see it? Oh, I guess if you have that other thing. I feel like maybe that was the second one that I was thinking of.
So the second one definitely
It was
was
the
a
Russian guy. Was he Russian?
Yeah. So yeah. There was definitely a Russian, and there was a like a Colombian.
Yeah, because the
Remember he comes
Colombian
on his
was
property?
threatening the Russian guy,
Yeah.
like, and he put his like uncle, or he put it like one of his dudes are in a barrel or whatever, like
Yeah.
that. He was like,
Oh, yeah.
"Ugh."
Oh, yeah.
And then the Russian guy showed up at the Colombian compound, and
Yeah.
he was like, "Mother Russia!"
2 guns,
Just
yeah.
started- yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Phenomenal movies, great movies. Just he was hammered.
Yeah. It says Bad Boys was 95.
95. Okay.
95.
Man, I wonder what car. I bet that Porsche was like a 91 or something then, because it was a little older. It wasn't brand new. I remember thinking like, oh, that was
Probably 91 to 93 or something like that.
That was my guess.
Those cars are so expensive now, dude.
That's
so
because they're collector's
expensive.
items, is what they are.
Yeah.
So cool. What? Over there, cyan.
I was gonna say I looked it up and it said it was a 911 Carrera.
That sounds about. I mean, that's probably right. We were wondering what year it was.
Ooh, dude, I was right about that, the bad guy, but I don't even think I can.
Pronounce his name.
No.
Oh, he was
Grew
pretty
up
clean.
in grew
He was
up
like
in
a pretty
Paris. It said he was
clean-cut
born
guy,
in
right?
Istanbul.
I was thinking the. Oh, it's screen.
Not Jet Li, but the guy below him.
Oh, born in Cairo. Cairo. I don't know how to pronounce it. Chake Cairo.
Yeah, that's why I didn't even try.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know my limitations.
Yeah. Like I think the Bad Boys. I think that's one of those few movies, though. I mean, Bad Boys 1 was really good. It's a phenomenal movie. But I think Bad Boys 2, like, it's one of those very few series that the second one was possibly like just as good as the first one.
Dude, when he takes that Molly, the fish.
That's a nice fucking fish cap. Big fucking eye. It's the nice fucking fish. Always calling. Was he talking to his wife? He was like, "You should see some of the sexy shit I got on right now." Is he high? Is he high right now? I love it. Right in the beginning when they go on that chase and they destroy all those cars and shit.
Yeah.
And the cap's like, "In a fucking boat? How do you destroy a boat in a car chase?" Fantastic. Great movies. And the Jamaicans.
Kiss of the Dragon, bro. You got to check that
I'll have
out.
to check that out. It reminds me, have you ever seen, what is it? I think it was a Thai movie. The Elephants. I think I made you watch that with me once. It was like, what was it? I'm pretty sure the guy was a Thai actor. He was like a Thai like stunt and like martial arts actor. But it was something to do with elephants. And like the last elephant or something like that. And it had some of the craziest fight scenes
Yeah.
I've ever seen. Like it was like one of those like 50 guys on one and he was doing just crazy stuff. But the interesting thing was he did all of his own scenes.
Okay.
So he did some like hardcore parkour shit and like fighting and stuff. Like at one point he did a backflip and kicked out a street light at like 10 feet high. But it was like it was a movie made with no CGI
Yeah.
and no stunt double.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was like the movie's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, but if you like watch the movie understanding that there's no CGI and no
You can-
stunt
you can be
stunt
impressed.
doubles, it's like, oh, like realize that this guy is actually doing all the things that there's no wires, no nothing. It's like, okay, this is kind of cool to look at it through that spectrum.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's super neat. Is it the last? No, it's not. I'm trying to remember what movie that is now. It's like just search like Thai elephant martial arts movie.
Those are our keywords.
I think those are our keywords. Yeah, because I remember it was something to do with an elephant, and then
They do any stunts off an elephant or anything, or is that a
no, it was like something to do with like
metaphor.
I think he was like fighting back against a kind of like a local
gang called
like
the Elephants?
gang, no, that were using elephants in like illegal animal trade stuff.
Ivory trade kind of
Like
stuff.
ivory trade, like, and he was like, and he had like a best friend that like he grew up with that was an elephant.
Oh, I got you.
You know what I mean? Kind of like one of those deals.
We should do one called
The Protector.
The
Is that-
Protector.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, throw that up on the screen. I want to see that.
We should do one called the Pangolin.
The
Yeah, we grew up with a pet pangolin, and then
Pango, what's yeah.
I think I've actually seen that before.
Khan must go. Yeah, a young fighter named Oh, that's an ad. Oh, that stuff's on there. Yeah, The Protector. So it's
Sounds pretty sweet.
Tom Young-gung. A young fighter named Kam must go to Australia to retrieve his stolen elephant. With the help of a Thai-born Australian detective, Kam must take on all corners,
Dude,
including a gang led by an evil woman and her 2 deadly bodyguards.
how do you retrieve an elephant? Like, how are we bringing that back? Is it?
I don't know. It's a big raft.
It's
or
Dumbo.
something.
I mean, it flies, but
Yeah.
how are we bringing that back?
Yeah, I don't know how they
Got
get
the
it there to begin
C-130.
with. Yeah, it was at the time it was a young elephant, but that's one of those movies where it's old. It's made in 2005, but it was realizing that this guy is doing this stuff.
Gotcha.
It's kind of like the original like Jackie Lee or Jackie Chan or
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee. Like
Yeah.
they're like they're actually doing this shit.
Sure.
Like that's kind of cool.
So the pangolin, you on board for that?
What's a pangolin? Have we talked about this before?
I don't know that we have talked. It's like
What's a
this.
pangolin?
It's like a scaled mammal, and there's not that many of them left, and they're highly sought after. Look this thing up. It's kind of a funky looking little creature.
Pangolin.
Yeah, it kind of.
I've learned more about wildlife since starting this podcast. It looks almost like kind of like an anteater.
kind
in
of
a sense.
So you scaled. They're cool.
Oh yeah, that is really cool.
Kind of a
That's-
cute, ugly little critter. At the
It
same
kind of looks
time.
like an armadillo,
Well, yeah, a
Yeah,
little bit.
or armadillo.
Yeah.
Maybe that's better. That's probably better. An armadillo with a
but like
an
a
anteater face.
dragon.
That's super
If
cool.
an anteater and an armadillo and a dragon had a threesome, it would be a pangolin.
More like armadillo. Am I
Oh.
right? That is kind of cool looking.
Wait, what? How do we get onto these things?
So they're talking about endangered species and fighting for them. And I said, what if we come out with our own movie called The Pangolin, where we grew up with a pet pangolin and then someone steals it and we have to go retrieve it? It's the American version.
It's not a bad idea.
Now we just got to get a hold of a pangolin.
And we have a sidekick that's a bald eagle that helps out. Obviously.
Obviously.
I
I don't know. That sounds a little too toxically masculine, Fred. Maybe like a red-tailed hawk, and we just rainbow dip its tail feathers.
I could see that. And then
Will that appease the masses?
probably nothing. Nothing will appease the
Hold on.
masses.
We'll give it a sex change, and then we'll check all boxes.
So it's a rainbow-tailed female trans hawk.
Boom.
It's not a bad idea.
Hmm.
So it's a female it's a female that transitioned to a male. Because I've seen those memes. Not all pregnant people are women. Have you? You've never seen those, obviously.
No, I did see that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and
Oh,
Danny DeVito, I think. Or no. Maybe it's not
Yeah.
Danny DeVito. Is it Danny DeVito in that
I
one
think
too?
so.
I saw that one in the movie theater when I was a kid where he gets pregnant, but I don't know what you are talking about.
yeah. There's memes out there.
Oh, well, it's because if you identify as a male, but you
female.
have female reproductive organs, then you are referred to as a man, but you are now pregnant. So they're
You're a
saying
man
not
that can conceive
all.
children.
Yes.
I don't think that's the way the animal kingdom actually works. And I studied some animals, and I happen to have one of those little worthless biology degrees.
I don't think that's how biology works.
And I just don't know that we learned that in any biology class.
Well, they weren't woke, Tone.
Yeah, I guess they weren't woke. I mean, they were just doing things like mapping the human genome and cloning things, and
They
things.
also think that
didn't really
animals
matter.
don't have feelings, so I'm not sure
That
I
was
trust your professors.
Oh, and here
one
we've come at a
full
crossroads.
circle. That was one lady's opinion. I want to put her in touch with you.
Here we are at a
I wanna
crossroads.
Put you guys in touch.
Do animals have feelings? And can animals change their genders?
Listen, my husband
Some
doesn't
animals
pee out of excitement when I walk in the door at night. Layla sometimes does. So I just think,
I mean, not unless you're filming an R. Kelly video, but
You could. That's hard, though. We've talked about that before. Peeing with an erection is difficult.
not impossible though.
It's not impossible. That's not easy.
Nothing worthwhile in life is.
Oh, man. Yeah.
This is fastly going down
Yeah,
the drain.
very fastly going down drain.
I'm here
down
for
the
it.
drain. Yeah.
So, Penguin,
It's a good idea.
R. Kelly videos, toxic masculinity,
We did it
transgender
all.
hawks.
It's not a bad idea.
I don't know that we have any boxes left to check at this point.
Oh, I think we'll. We just gonna end it. Just
Boom,
we'll be
right
like
there.
20 minutes in.
15-minute
Done.
podcast.
Yeah, 15 minutes in. Done. Boom. Nailed all. Touched all the subjects.
Can P
And DMX.
can P Diddy's "Shake Your Tail Feather" be our theme song?
No, that's Nelly.
It's P Diddy and Nelly together
But whose is it? I'm pretty sure it's a Nelly thing with.
with P
Was
Diddy on
was
it, probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
they do it
I feel
together.
like that was more of a Nelly.
Can we give the hawk like a gold beak and then cue up, let me see your grill, your what, your grill.
That's not a bad idea.
We were talking about
Bedazzled beak.
painting
Gold
the
pounds.
tail feathers, so I thought
Really pitching it
Full
back to the early 2000s.
Liberace.
Full Liberace.
I saw Nelly at a concert one time.
I have also seen Nelly at a concert.
Not that terrible.
Yeah. We see Nelly at a concert.
I was trying to think, when was that?
Throwback. So here's a little fun story. Interesting.
Was that at Roverfest?
It was at Roverfest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you? Did you see him there? Were you there? No.
I was not there.
So that was a really interesting. So we saw him at a Roverfest, which is for those who don't know, Rover is a Cleveland-based radio show and used to throw a yearly bash with music artists and whatnot and ridiculousness.
Pretty eclectic mix of artists.
Yeah,
wasn't
I
it?
mean, he would have I've seen some of my, probably some like my favorite concerts, some of them at a Rovers Fest. Cause, there's been times where we've seen, like I said, Nelly, to Andrew WK, Trapped, which was a huge, high school,
Yeah.
time period for me.
that
Really
Headstrong?
love
Is
them.
that song?
Yeah, they have a lot of good stuff. But yeah, that was like one of the things. I remember
Seven Dust. You saw.
Seven Dust, which was I still love fucking Seven Dust. They're phenomenal.
Hold on. Was Nickelback there?
No, they have not had Nickelback.
Thank God.
No,
I would watch that. And
yeah,
be
she
excited.
loves her. So.
Somebody said the other day, they're like, the best band ever, Nickelback.
The best band to fucking fool people. They're just. I get it. But let's not put them in a group with good bands. That's just ridiculousness.
How about Creed? Did you see Creed there?
No, but I understand Creed, because Creed, it was kind of like their Nirvana, where Nirvana I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Like Nirvana's, they weren't really all that talented.
Yeah.
They were just different.
Sure.
And they appealed to people at that time, and they were able to catch. I wouldn't say they started the wave.
Scott Stapp, is that the dude's name?
Scott Stapp.
Stapp.
I think
Okay.
Stapp from Creed.
So
yeah.
was that the original, like,
The original
alternative?
Nickelback. Yeah, that was the original Nickelback.
So that CD was stuck in one of my vehicles, and I could not get it out, but it would still play, and it wasn't my CD.
Did you burn the car?
No,
down?
every now and then I would listen to it on long drives.
I will say, Creed wasn't that bad. It's kind of like the Nickelback thing. It's not that they're bad. They're fairly decent.
Yeah.
They make catchy music. Same with Creed. They made decent music, but it was just like, you hear 3 of their songs, you've heard all
all of them.
50 of them, or
about-
all 80 of them. However many. There's so many songs that sound exactly the same.
What about Buckcherry? Were they at Roverfest?
No. Like I said, she's not much of a music
Calm
type.
down, Cassie.
I did see POD, which was weird because they were in that time frame of
Christian band at the time?
no.
Are you sure?
Well, it depends on what you define as a Christian band. But during high school, like, they were kind of big, and I saw them as kind of like a Creed type band, like playing and.
I think they were way harder than Creed, though, weren't
No,
they?
they were, but like their songs were pretty.
Like vanilla, like
Yeah.
not edgy, not like pushing the envelope.
Yeah, or even like their music wasn't like anything that spectacular, whatever. But I tell you what, they put on a hell of a fucking concert.
Live, you're saying? They're just awesome.
Blew my mind. Because I was there, it was the same, in the Roverfest, I was there for like Trapped. I heard that Trapped was going to be there. And there was a couple other, I think no, it wasn't The Used. But there was another band that I was like, I'm going to this concert. I remember telling, this is when I wasn't quite as bold as I am now. I remember telling old Castle when the lineup came out. and Trapped is on there. And I just texted her, I said, going to Riverfest this year, period. And she was like, oh, you're just going? Can I come with? I said, yeah, you can if you want to, but if not, I'm going. I'm just telling you right now, I'm going.
Yeah.
And
Did you
then,
say
like,
you weren't as bold then, or you were more bold then?
I'm more bold now. I was
got
not
you.
as bold then.
And bold in what sense?
Just being able to tell my wife, like, hey, I'm doing this.
That makes me sound really terrible. I feel like you should really add into.
I was gonna say, I feel like your relationship is at a point now where there's like this different level of respect.
Oh, absolutely.
And this underlying, like, we do these things. You know, there's this give and this take, and it's less bold, more understanding because of a built relationship.
It's not like I had rules or like, hey, you can't go do these things. It's not
No.
my fault you didn't go do these things.
Do you want the megaphone, Cass?
No, yeah. So, I mean, goddamn, you didn't even give me a fucking second to
want a
fucking
bulletproof
explain
vest,
it.
Fred?
Yeah, so there was multiple things that were going on. I think obviously that was years and years and years ago. So our relationship has progressed and matured, and myself I have also progressed and matured in different things. So it was one of those where I was like, at that time, it's a little bit of a ton of things, but one of the things was like I just didn't feel comfortable being like aggressive with like what I wanted to do or whatever. I don't know if that's a good explanation. It's a terrible
Probably.
explanation. It's
Maybe not the explanation. I think the phrasing. Like, I don't know that
Yeah.
you really need to be aggressive.
No, not aggressive, but it's just like
but just more overt about the things you want to do.
yeah, that I
No,
could
so
like
I think it's normally you're like, hey, I'd like to go do this thing, and if it interests me or not. It was a text, hey, don't care if you want to go or not, I'm going to Roverfest.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, who's going? Like,
yeah, I
who's
still
playing?
even
Because
do
I
that.
don't
And,
know who any of these people are. I don't give a fuck.
one thing, so that mic, you get talking to the side of it. So you want to lift it up. Yeah. Right there. You want to talk into the side of it. It's a different mic. Yeah. But no, that's exactly what it is. Cause like I used to be very like,
Got to mouth that thing a different way there, Cass.
yeah, you do. So you got to just start the side.
Like a lollipop.
Yeah, exactly like a lollipop. Yeah. No, I used to be very much more insecure with myself. So I think a lot of times the people that are insecure, this is just me projecting or doubling with my feelings at the time, was I was insecure with my own person. So I was like, I had to like try to like not get in trouble with people. And I always felt like I had to try to please people. So it was like, hey, like, it was always like, hey, I kind of like, I mean, this sounds kind of, it's kind of like a little kid. Like, hey, this sounds kind of cool. And then you wait to see what the other person's response is. Well, I'd like to, I don't know, like, I'd like to go if it's okay with you. And then it's something like, and that was one of those things where I was like, hey, I'm doing this. And that was, like I said, very different than what I am now. Not that I'm more disrespectful of her now, because it's not necessarily respecting. It was about an internal thing. But it was like, at that point, it was like, hey, this is something that like, in my mind, at that point, was like bucket list. Like, hey, I'm doing this. Like, so here we go. But all the way back, POD. Didn't expect
Amazing
them.
live.
Yeah, didn't expect them to put on much of a show,
So
and was fucking phenomenal.
are they the best band that you've ever seen live? Who is the best
no.
band that you've ever seen live?
Well, I will say real quick before we move on to that same night, right after that,
Yeah.
Lil Jon played, and that was a great time too. Yeah, it was fucking fun. Yeah, it was hilarious. So good.
Yeah.
But also, the first Roverfest we went to was where you saw Nelly, which I think is how the story
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's how
started.
the story started. And that was an interesting story. Yeah, to circle back to that real quick. Thank you. So the first when I saw Nelly, or we saw Nelly,
Jen Psaki just show up.
circle back. So that was shortly after, and if nobody knows this story, look into it if you're that young. It was a couple months after, I remember a couple other names, but it was a couple months after Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and there was another one. There was one or two other females that got rescued from that
Oh,
fucking
there
dude's
were
house in Cleveland.
3 total.
Was there 3? Okay, so it was Amanda, Gina, and I can't remember the third one.
Michelle Knight.
Michelle Knight,
Oh,
yes.
I thought you were starting a Mambo number 5 song.
No.
Sorry.
But I don't know if you remember that story where the it was this dude that like had kept these
Ariel
3
Castro.
Ariel Castro, yeah, kept these girls for it was like 15 years, 10
it
or
was a
like just 10 or
long
15 years.
Even
From August 2002 to May of 2013.
Yeah, so 11 years.
who was some random dude? Was he a delivery man or something? He was passing by.
No, it was
Somebody got away.
No, he was one of the neighbors.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
the guy that
Oh yeah.
in as much
that interview
as much
was
as
awesome.
we separate these two things very much so. But have you heard the jam up of his interview that they made a song out of?
Yeah.
Fucking hilarious. But yeah, he was sitting on his porch and like he knew the Ariel Castro dude. He's like, man, he's like, we had barbecues with this guy.
I remember
like,
saying that.
And
he would go play at a local bar, like that Ariel Castro would play at a local bar in a band and stuff, and everybody knew who he was. And
yeah, like, and this dude was just sitting on his porch one day, and I think it was Amanda Berry or it was banging on the door, and he went over and was like, what the hell is going on? Like, and ended up rescuing.
Yeah, real life Cleveland, all the pretty girls right there.
Rescuing these 3 girls out of this house that they've been kept prisoner for 11 years.
Dude, that is just nuts.
Insane story. But so they were actually able to, so Rover, the guy that put on the concert, as we were watching, like he put out an invite to Amanda Berry, and just basically on the radio was like, hey, like, we're doing this, like, and it was like literally like just happened. So they're like, hey, like, he's a very, I don't know if you've ever really listened to a lot of him.
Not a lot.
I think maybe he was probably one of the first people that kind of sparked me into the interest of podcasts and just hearing people talk, because I drive around and
True.
like, you can only listen to so much radio. You can only listen to so many CDs. And I spent a lot of time driving around. And so I was like, you know what? Like, for 4 hours in the morning, I got to drive around and listen to a bunch of fucking idiots talk.
Was that in your CRX, bro?
Oh, yeah. I mean, all types of things. Yeah. I mean, hell, just recently, I still listened to him a couple years ago. But he just said on the radio, like, hey, like, you guys have been, like, and he's kind of irreverent and to a point. So he's like, hey, you guys have been locked up for 11 years. Like, come party. And then I think it was at the event, he said one of the people, somebody came up to him and said, hey, Amanda Berry's here. And he was like, yeah, get like, fucking get out. I got shit to do. They're like, no, seriously. Like, she's here. Like, she heard you on the radio inviting you. Like, and he's like, are you like, really?
Yeah.
So he went over and like, she was there and he was like, well, fucking give her all, like,
anything,
VIP, whatever she wants.
Give it
like,
to her.
give it to her. And then later, like when Nelly played at the end of his show, he brought her out on stage with him. And like, it was like, yeah, like it was just crazy to like be there, hear this story happen. And then all of a sudden, like now Nelly's bringing her out on stage and singing to her, like mind blowing. Hey, pause it real quick. Here, let me get a mouse so I can fix this. Yeah. Cause the audio is stupid. Where it's at. Here we are. I have to fix this audio so we can hear this real quick, because this is pretty mind-blowing. Where's that? Oh.
Are we allowed to play this, or does this stuff get taken down?
No, because it's not copyrighted.
Okay.
And this
it's not an NFT yet?
Yeah, right? Yeah, I think, because this is a news channel. So if this works.
Now you probably know.
This past Saturday, Amanda Berry, who was held captive for 10 years by convicted abductor Ariel Castro, made an emotional, unexpected appearance at Roverfest in Cleveland, Ohio.
Give it up for Amanda Berry!
2 months earlier, morning radio personality Rover invited Amanda and her 2 other captives to attend his music festival to make up for a decade of missed concerts. To his surprise, she came.
They pointed to her, and she was looking at me, and I saw her. She was actually out in the crowd. And when I took her out on stage, the crowd just erupted. It was an uproar. I actually looked out into the crowd, and there were guys who were crying, who
Yeah.
had tears
Put me on
coming
that
down
list.
their face.
Very happy, plenty to celebrate. Just
Yeah,
weeks
there she
before
is up on
Castro
stage
was
with Nelly.
sentenced to life in prison.
It's going to be life in prison without parole
for an aggregate term of not less than 1,000 years.
And do you consent?
Dude, he kind of reminds me of Tommy Chong.
Yeah, fuck that guy. Yeah, you can stop that. But yeah, it was. Yeah, fuck that guy. But it was insane. I remember like because it like they obviously it was a local story everyone's talking about. And they come on stage. I'm like, holy shit! Like, how fucking awesome is that? How like to be able to survive something like that, and then you know, and I remember the shittiest thing afterwards thinking about this is like people like were like calling her out because she was out there enjoying herself. Like, fucking get the fuck out of here. Like, I feel like maybe that was the beginning of our culture. Like, just a bunch of shitheads. Just like
Hey, you were locked up, raped, and abused for
11 years.
But
and
you
now
know
people
what?
are fucking calling you a shitty person.
Don't go out and have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, like, go fuck yourself. Like, insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, so we were there for that.
Cool.
Wild. Yeah, it was pretty crazy story.
So best live band though. One of these beers here.
Yeah.
One beer in one of those ones I got you.
Yeah, I'll try one of those. I don't know best live band. I've seen a lot. Best live band as far as what? Like what are the
Just
stipulations?
Best
like
live in general.
the most fun I had, or the
I
best
mean,
best musically.
You define that. So compared to if you listen to them on the radio or a CD or an MP3 and then live. And
So you're
just
talking about like musical quality.
Bro, I'm talking about however you interpret that question.
I don't know how to interpret that question.
Then just
Because I
interpret
have
it
so
how
many.
you
I don't
wanna
have.
interpret it.
You know what? Like my kid will ask me this. She'll be like, "What's your favorite this? What's your favorite that?" I'm like, "Well,
It doesn't have to be one either. I mean, you
Yeah,
could say, hey, it's this and this because of this and because of that.
I don't live in. I guess, and this is something I actually would like to get into at some point, but I don't live in absolutes.
I mean, no one really should
Well, a lot of people.
because there's few true absolutes.
Well, yeah, but I think a lot of people think they do unknowingly. But I actively try not to live in absolutes. But I will say, musically, just pure musical, I think Dave Matthews Band.
I figured you might say that.
Just because the amount of people that are there and they can play, and I know a lot of people are like, well, who Dave Matthews Band, like whatever. But it's kind of one of those things where like if you can appreciate music and you understand music, and you can see 12 different people, you know, one person playing an acoustic guitar, then you have like a bassist and a drummer that has this giant drum set, and a saxophonist and violinist and all these different things, and them to be able to just play randomly. Like they'll play a song, but then they just start just jamming, and they just start just playing off the cuff. And to see a lot of people do that at an extremely impressive level, that's really cool.
So Dave Matthews Band.
As far as just pure musically goes. But man, I've seen people like 311 was a phenomenal concert. Like those dudes are super cool just because like their
Energy or what?
energy is out of this world. And when you realize that like a lot of people look at 311 like, oh, just a pothead band.
Sure.
You know, because they
They
make
make much energy on pot.
Yeah, well, yeah, they make trippy music and all those things, but like, I think it was during the Dan podcast we did. I talked about some of their line, like some of their lyrical, some of their lyrics are like when you realize what they're saying, it's like, oh, like these dudes aren't just a bunch of stoners. Like they got some cool ideas, but their energy and like in their way they put pieces of music together.
Is it Rage Light?
Yeah, it's Rage Happy.
Rage. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's
There you go.
anti-rage, but it's good. You know?
Nice.
Yeah, I would love to see Rage Against the Machine though.
Yeah.
They are ragey, but didn't you try to get me tickets to Rage last year before the whole pandemic? Well, we realized that they were like ridiculously expensive, but then they got canceled because of the corona.
Yeah.
I saw something the other day that I can't remember if it was a meme or something where they talked about Rage Against the Machine and how like obviously if anybody is familiar with Rage Against the Machine, they're super political, and you know they're like kind of obviously Rage Against the Machine. That's I don't know what the correct term for the
An idiom or something.
for again like the government, the structure, all these things. You know how much their tickets were to go watch them in concert? It's like, what, like $450? Like,
But, hey, they don't like the government. They still like nice shit, though, man.
they still like capitalism, though, don't they?
They do. Anybody that makes money does. That's for sure.
I thought that was funny. I'm like, oh, well, it's kind of ironic, you know?
Don't you think?
Oh, Linus. What about you? Favorite? You have a favorite? White Buffalo obviously fits in there, but that's just for personal reasons.
Yeah,
So, you know,
he's always fantastic
Yeah.
live. I think, man, when I saw Stapleton open up for Isbell, and then they brought John Prine out on stage, and they were just, you've seen both of them.
I haven't seen John Prine, but I've seen.
Well,
Stapleton
you've seen
and Isbell,
you've seen both of them. So
phenomenal.
yeah, and
musicians,
they
phenomenal.
were like, I didn't realize how good of a guitarist Isbell was.
Oh yeah,
dude,
I didn't realize that either. When I
Yeah.
saw him, I was like, oh shit! Like
Was it
some
like-
of these incredible guitar riffs are him.
Yeah, and he had like 10. You know, his was it luthier or whatever you call the guitar guy.
Oh, I don't know.
I think that's Cass. You might want to look that one up. The dude that kind of manages guitars.
Oh, okay.
There's
Is he
like 10 or 14
he
guitars.
just keeps on bringing them
Just
out.
brings them out, man.
Yeah.
Brings them out. But yeah, everything was so tight and just so good. And that was before Stapleton was like mega famous. And so it was pretty cool. So I knew he was like up and coming. It was, you know, obviously I enjoy songwriting. Big time songwriter. And then to see Prine out there was just,
That is kind of neat.
it was ridiculous. But I would say who was a surprise, man, was, and not that I thought he was going to be crappy, but you hear the kid's voice and you're like, that's not his voice. There's no way. It was Coulter Wall.
Yeah, I'd like to see him in concert.
Dude,
yeah.
he was freaking awesome. Like, he was awesome. And then the other one that was just great.
How does he sound compared to? I've heard some of his live stuff like recorded, but like, is his live like?
Dude, I thought his live was better than the recorded stuff. 'Cause
I could see that.
I think Corey went there to that one with me, and he was just like, dude, he was like, that was ridiculous. But then the Sean James concert was such a surprise, man. Not that I thought he was going to be crappy, but like, and I think one of the reasons I liked him too was just because he was such a friendly dude. Like, I saw him walk around and almost shake everyone's hand in this small venue, and you could just see how grateful he was that you were willing to give you
Just spend your time
his
with
time.
him.
Yeah, your time exactly.
Yeah.
So
I could see that about him. It's funny. It kind of. I listened to a Lex Friedman podcast the other day, and he was basically told his guys, he's like, "Hey, thanks for wasting your time with me." Like, basically, like, you know, just super appreciative. Like,
Sure.
I know, like, you basically just wasted your time with me, so I appreciate that. But I can see Sean James, because I will say, when I've listened to Sean James, I've gained a more appreciation when I listen to his live stuff. I don't think his live stuff is necessarily better than his recorded stuff, but he puts little pieces in there, like, hey, like, I wrote this song when I was spending night after night in the hospital with my sister that had cancer, like, and I wrote this song, and it was like,
it gives him
now
new meaning.
now the song makes more sense now. Like, and to hear him, like, he's got that like emotion, and he's just basically, he seems like a guy that just writes and plays just to like almost like as a therapy.
Yeah, I love it, man, when they perform and they don't have some crazy sound system or some dude running control and stuff.
Yeah.
And you're like, that dude sounds that good with like an amp and a guitar. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I love that. Like, to me, there's something about that acoustic type setting, that unplugged kind of setting.
Yeah.
That just has always just, even if it sounds worse, it's
raw,
it
man.
hits harder.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever seen that the White Buffalo. I'm trying to remember which song it is now. He does this song, which is one of my favorite songs of his.
Was he on like a little stage and it was like a small outdoor gathering?
No, he's standing in the middle of like a grass field.
Okay.
And as he's getting ready, and it's one of my favorite songs. I don't think it's on any of his recorded albums, but he's standing in this field, and like people are just sitting around like cross-legged, like listening to him. And as he starts the song, like these sirens start going, like an ambulance or like something like starts going by, and they stop. So he starts playing, and they start again, and he's just kind of like, oh, like hanging out. And it was that's like literally like one of my favorite musical, like, quote unquote videos. It's just, the song's good, but just having him, like, seeing that, like, just imagining being able to sit there and like listen to this guy just sitting on the grassy hill somewhere, like, that's what, to me, like, that's music.
Yeah, I always think of like that. That folk sound, man. When people gather around and they got their guitar and the fiddle and their banjo and it's on somebody's porch and they're sipping on some moonshine and I'm just like, man, that sounds awesome. You got the fireflies in the background, maybe some West Virginia mountains.
It just happens.
Yeah. It's just organic.
Organic. Just happens. Yeah. There's just something special about it. I wish I remember what song that was. I don't know what it is.
You looking for it, Cass?
I don't even know if I could find it. It's because I don't think it's on any of his recorded albums, but I would suggest people, if I knew which one it was, I would suggest people to go check it out. But I don't know if I'll be able to remember it. But I probably won't. But it's pretty phenomenal. Obviously, we couldn't play it anyways because, that would be copyrighted because it's a song. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Cool.
It's a great song, though.
I'm going to use a banjo real quick on me.
Okay. We'll do that. All right. Yeah, I couldn't figure out what that song was called, but it was a good one. Maybe I'll try to figure it out and throw it up there if I remember and put it in the notes so people can see it. Oh, stop. But bringing it all back, I will say like you said, we've hit things very briefly, very briskly. I feel like we've skipped like a rock on water. I read something today that helped me to understand, even though I knew exactly what it was, and I already understood it about myself. I read something that helped me to understand why I have such an issue and have such a problem with some things that are going on. I don't know if you've ever listened to any podcast or ever heard of Brian Greene.
Oh, I don't think so.
He's a physicist.
Okay.
But he has some conversations out there with people, podcasts and different things that are super interesting. And he's a physicist, but he understands like quantum physics and those different things better than most. And he's able to talk about them in a way that's somewhat coherent.
Sure.
A normal person, right? So he doesn't. I don't think he like claims to like to understand quantum physics because he doesn't. Like I've heard conversations with like people ask him like, well, what's that even mean, or what, like, how do we understand that? Just like, well, we don't understand it, but we understand it basically up to this point.
Sure.
So I recently bought one of his books, and in the like, there's a lot of times in like a book I won't even read like the intro or like the prologue, all that bullshit, because it's like, I don't care. But he makes this comment when he was a sophomore in college that his roommate or somebody said something to him, and he had an older friend. He in college that had like said this to him, and he's remembered it since. And basically the quote was, "I do mathematics because once you prove a theorem, it stands forever." And like that was the very first sentence I read in his book, and I was like, oh, yeah. Because I say like all the time, like I like math because math is always math. Like 2 + 2 always equals 4.
You mean masculinity doesn't doesn't change its definition on us?
Yeah, well, I think that's like I've realized that like, and I think old Casshole can attest to this, that, well, at least part of this, that the way my brain works, and I've realized this is like and I've said this before, like I'm very like root cause type of person. I always try to find like I do my best to be very objective. And I think today there's a lot of people that are pretending to be objective, but they're highly subjective. And they're doing that by only taking certain sources or redefining what fucking things mean. But guess what? You have 2 of one thing and 2 of the other. You have 4 total of the things. Period. That's math. Like, math is math. It just, you can't change math. Obviously, quantum physics is a whole different thing. But that's not just math. You know what I mean? So, like, I think that's what my brain always goes to. And, like, I'll be having an argument with somebody. Not necessarily an argument, but a discussion. And I know I've done this a ton. This is where she can understand, or at least attest to, that I'll say something and she'll like kind of reply to it. And I'm like, no, that's not like, but that's not what I'm saying. So what I've realized is I have a very difficult time articulating what I'm thinking, like properly, a lot of times. And to look at that, and I understand that sometimes, I know, hell, I've listened to the podcast back before, and I go, God damn, that's not what I meant to say at all. Like, that's not what I intended. Like, and I listen to it, I go, okay, I can see how people could see that. That's not what I mean. Like, I know what I mean, but like, how do you properly articulate what you mean to say? I have trouble with that sometimes. Is there like, do you have like a cheat sheet, Tony? Like, you with your big words?
No, I don't use a ton of those big words as much, just because I think it goes back to that quote that we always say about the problem with communication being the illusion that it actually happened or occurred. And so I think I'm listening to what you're saying here about the 2 + 2 = 4, and it almost sounds like, hey, we got 2 tigers and 2 elephants, and it's 4 animals. But sometimes people are like, yeah, there's 4 animals, but it's like 2 elephants, and you see a tiger and they see a lion or something like that. Ooh. So, and I think it goes back to semantics or like word definitions. And we kind of touched on this in a group text about that masculinity, an article and about it. You know, we can touch on this later if you want, but just that, you know, how is masculinity defined? And the way that I might view masculinity is not, you know, in a pejorative term. It's, you know, I was raised to look at that as, number one, biologically. Like, you have testes, you know, you have more testosterone, so I would say that's masculine. But then, you know, from a, I don't know if you'd say psychological or sociological standpoint, I guess like what it means to be a male, or what it means to be a man, to be masculine, I guess. Which, and I think that's probably very different than that particular author that you guys sent the text about. So man, we spoke about this with Dan and just definitions, and I think a lot of the confusion, man, comes down to like, well, what's your definition of this?
Right.
And what's my definition of this? And then if they don't line up, then we're not even arguing about the same thing. Like, we're not on the same plane, and it's pointless to even really argue about that unless I truly know how you define that word. Then if you define that word, maybe we're not even arguing about it. Maybe I actually agree with you now.
Yeah.
Because there's clarity and we did some fact finding.
Well done. Well said. Well said. I think that even clears up my thought process where I was at. But I totally agree. And so what do you think I guess in my mind is to, you know, for a lot of people, like, they go, what do you think is the solution to that? But in my mind, I think of, okay, well, to find a solution, we have to find the problem. You know,
and that goes back to what you were saying, being a root cause human being. It's tough to find the problem when all you want to do is just slap Band-Aids on, and you're not going to do a differential diagnosis and try and go, well, what's the actual disease? There's symptoms, but we have to get deeper, and we have to collectively look at the symptoms, and then maybe we have to try some different things. We have to run some diagnostic tests. You know, we have to try some different state or federal programs and see what truly hits on these things, and then collect some information from that. And once we extrapolate that, then we can go, well, this worked and this didn't. So maybe this actually is one of the problems, and we could focus more funds here, more time here, those kind of things. So, I mean, what you said about you as a human being, I feel like if we had more politicians that looked at those things, we might solve more problems. That said, I'm not a politician. I don't understand, the whole, political underlying and what goes on behind that. Because maybe there are politicians that want to do those things, but because of funding, because of their constituents, because of all these things, they're actually not able to do that. They're a puppet, or they're a marionette, or they, have to do these things, or they're not going to get reelected, or who knows.
Yeah, I think that's a big issue that we have too. Is not only how complex these things are, and like I said, I'm not a politician. I've said before, I'm not an investment person to like give you advice, or like we've talked about, Bitcoin, all these different things, all these complex things. And I guess maybe that's been kind of my aim for this as a side note, is to kind of take complex things, because like I said before, I'm good at least I think I'm good. One of the things that I am better at personally than other things that I'm better at, like one of my, in my own mind, one of the things that I am better at is learning things at a basic, being a jack of all trades, master of none. Like I've never mastered anything, except baiting, naturally. You brought up the last one, so I just had to throw it back in there. I think it was the last one. Maybe it was two. I don't know. Whatever. But I think that's part of like what I've found like a lot of times is being able to basically understand a complex scenario, and then I love the idea of passing that along to people, because a lot of times, there's so much complexity, whether it be in politics or, social things or economics, and all these things kind of bleed together. It's impossible for the average person. It's impossible for anybody to know about all of them deeply. Especially when, like me, I didn't go to college. I didn't sit through any like special like economics classes or business, any of this shit.
Business ethics.
Yeah, none of that shit. So it's really, for me, it's really fun to be able to kind of sift through the bullshit and kind of break things down and see people have that same reaction that I had. Kind of like we've talked about, like a child, like understanding something, or, Glenn talking about his, son solving that Rubik's Cube for the first time, and seeing a kid do that and knowing it's not like I want to be like some kind of teacher guru for people. That's the last thing I want. But knowing what it feels like to solve that Rubik's Cube, and being able to take that Rubik's Cube and give it to somebody else and go, hey, this is kind of how it works. And then to see them figure it out. And it's like, that's really cool. Really sidetracked there hard. But I think it's such a complex issue. It's like, where do we start? And I guess in my mind, maybe that's why I keep tripping over this, is maybe in my mind where we start is getting more people to semi-understand what's going on, or at least acknowledge that the fuckery that's going on with everything. And guess what? Not just the other side. Whatever side you're on, it's not just the other side. It's your quote unquote side too, whatever the fuck that means. I heard a short little thing about politics in America. It's not broken. It's fixed. And it was like, oh, that's really good. Like if you like really just take it as it is, like the politics, like it works just how it's designed to, for the people that it's designed for.
Which should be scary and upsetting.
Right. And I guess that's kind of like, so how do we, as a root cause thing, if we're going back to that, how do you think we can, begin to break those barriers? Because you can't just fix the politicians. You can't just fix the legislation. Like if that doesn't happen.
So let me ask you this. Whenever you experienced like true, like epiphanical change in your life, what happened? And and I'll say this before you answer it, but and this isn't exclusive. Going back to what you were saying about, talking in absolutes, but catastrophic change is almost one of the only things I believe causes true change, or has the ability to cause change. There's not. I'll leave it at that. I'll let you just answer it.
Well, I will answer that with saying, while I agree, I don't think it has to be that way.
I hope it doesn't. That's almost a fatalistic thing to say on my part.
Well, I don't even know if it'd have to be necessarily fatalistic. I think that's just. Well, it was kind of funny. Castle and I were talking about this earlier. As a side note, you're gonna have to come on soon as an official guest. Just preparing you for that.
So, dude, hold on. Let me just real quick. Let me just throw something in there. So when I say that, I mean, think about times when a nation was brought together or brought to its knees and brought together. 9/11,
Right.
World War I, World War II.
Right. So what I was going to say is we were having a discussion earlier because she has started a bunch of fitness stuff. She's got a shit ton of certifications, and a bunch of things that she's dealing with customers now. And we had basically the discussion going back to the pain of staying the same has to become greater than the pain of change. And there's a lot of different ways that's been said. For change to happen, like people have to feel uncomfortable enough to the point to go, I'm so uncomfortable with where I'm at that now I have to change. But it doesn't have to be that way. You know what I mean? But that tends to be the way it happens.
Yeah, but I think, man, it's difficult though, because what's uncomfortable for one person is not uncomfortable for another person.
Right. So that person ends up changing more because they're able to do it. I think so. To me,
or they don't, and then you butt heads to a point of catastrophe.
Yeah, catastrophe's hard.
I don't want catastrophe. Like that's the last resort. Man.
Yeah, it is. But I think. Well, it kind of goes back to how many times have I said it. I think we've gotten to that point here, particularly in the U.S., because we're so comfortable. So catastrophe has gotten to the point. It's gotten to the point that catastrophe is what leads us to finally go, fuck, fine, I'll get off my couch. Like now that my electricity won't turn on, my lights won't turn on, I guess I'll get off the couch and light a candle.
Which catastrophe for us is normalcy for others.
Right. You know what I mean? But like until something, but it's one thing for your electricity to be off, this, that, whatever, but it's like in the nation now, like it takes something really disturbing to get people moving.
Oh yeah.
And I think, and sometimes I think You
mean like a pandemic to focus on your health? Oh wait.
Well, I think even at that point, I think there's these narratives, both sides, all over the board, that they've realized, like whether it be the media or politicians or whoever it may be, I think has realized that like we're comfortable because we're Americans and this, that, or like just people in general. You have to push people hard. So we take this story and we make it grandiose to make you realize that this is a giant deal that's happening. And that's the only way to get
fearmonger them is what you do.
Yeah. Or you take, one of the many instances of, and we don't have to get into it, but the police brutality thing or the gun violence thing. That's all of a sudden now gun violence started back up again. We talked about on the other week. It didn't go away anywhere, but it's all of a sudden now that we're trying to push this thing or we're trying to do this thing. Now we have to talk about it more.
It's reported on more. It kept growing since 2019.
Right. So I think and they've realized that. So now, and I think social media is a big piece of this as well too, is because we have so much input that so many things, the news cycle or the shock value has gotten so small for those kinds of things. When they're on the screen, it has to be up in your face even more and more and more, which I think has done a giant disservice to us as a people, because you look at things that are actually really disturbing.
I can name a few.
There's a lot of things out there that are really disturbing, but people don't see it. All they see is on their little screen, their little TV, and they're scrolling through the social media. So it doesn't, it's politics and this and shootings and that, and oh look, Kim Kardashian's a billionaire. That's cool with her fake ass, whatever. And people just seeing all these things mixed together, so it just desensitizes. It's a weird thing, I think, because it desensitizes things, but at the same time, they've never really got sensitized to something catastrophic and actually difficult.
Yeah.
So it's like this weird thing where we think it's kind of like violence in movies. You see it, and people think they get desensitized to it. Well, go out into a war zone.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was that told me a story. They were, I think it was, I want to say they were like an EMT or something like that, or it was their first week on the job. They got called out to this, it was a bad car accident or something like that. And this person's arm had gotten amputated. And they're the senior EMT or whatever on the scene, the guy was like, well, what am I supposed to do? He's like, what you're going to do is you're going to go pick up that arm in the middle of the road.
Yeah. You're
going to take it back, and then you're going to go behind the truck. You're going to throw up, and then we're going to keep on doing our jobs.
And pat yourself on the back with it.
And then, literally the guy, he did. He's like, I can't remember I can't remember if it was a story I heard or whatever, but it was they're like, what'd you do? He's like, I did exactly what I was told to do. I picked it up. I put it to where I was supposed to, and then I literally went up and threw up all over the place, and then I went back to work. And people just don't have any type of semblance of what real shit's
real experiences.
Yeah, real experiences and what real shitty things are all about.
Dude, you and Casper, this beer's killing me, bro. I haven't drank beer for a while. I gotta pee again real quick. I got a
Here we go.
No, I got a great story to tell about something that goes along with that. The first.
There you go. Cool. All right. Potty break number 2. Story time. Ready.
No, it just goes back to what you were saying about people not really living, and then all of a sudden when they live, they're like, oh, that's different than what I expected. And so I didn't know what to expect when I ran my first code. I was at a skilled rehab facility. So someone, their heart stops, and you got to try and bring them back to life. And so I had patients, and they had a lot of comorbidities. They had a ton of chronic conditions that were cumulative, I guess. And so things, not a very positive prognosis for many of my patients.
Right.
And so most of them were not do not resuscitates. And so you had to continue running the code regardless of if you knew that they had passed, because you weren't a medical doctor, and so you couldn't pronounce them dead. So you had to run the code. You had to do compressions and oxygenate until the squad would get there. So I had this one lady in particular. It was my first code that I ever ran.
You said most of them are do not resuscitate. Was that for a reason?
Most of self? I don't know, man. I shouldn't say most. It was probably 50-50. But it's not like you could go and check. All of a sudden they're like, hey, code, you got to go and run it. And someone's supposed to check, and so he would check, but at least 50% of the time They wouldn't. You had to keep doing it. And so this one particular woman we ran a code on, and I was like, man, I don't know what I'm going to be like. And so I directed the code pretty well. I thought through, everything I knew, my training, things like that, what to do. And I was doing the chest compressions, and it was kind of crazy because she had a feeding tube in too. So I had to matrix dodge the stuff coming out of her chest as I was pumping her stomach, excuse me. And so, but while I was on top of her performing this, I was like, man, am I going to get sick? Am I going to feel bad? What's going to happen? And I kind of have a little bit of a warped mind. And
you don't say. I know that.
I don't know if I separate myself from these things, but as I'm sitting there doing compressions, I was like, okay, that person's oxygenating, you know, this person's counting out. And all of a sudden, Foreigner popped in my head.
Oh, Jesus.
And that song, I didn't really think of like how quickly the human body would drop in temperature. I'm like, man, this lady is pretty cold, pretty fast. And yeah, and so all I could think of was just, you're as cold as ice, willing to sacrifice
my love.
So that's what was going through my head as I was doing these compressions. I know, terrible, right? But yeah, I think everyone handles that stuff a little differently.
Yeah, they do. You know what? How about this? You know, since I kind of think about, you touched on toxic masculinity. And to me, in my mind, I once again go back to, so just objectively, ooh, popping bottle. Oh, you're this dog over there. Jesus.
Get thirsty.
Yeah. So I think about this objectively, like, okay, maybe I know personally I am very good at compartmentalizing things. And to me, that sounds like a very compartmentalizing story. And I think if we put all of the shit aside, I would say that it's probably statistically true. I'm assuming, I'm guessing here. It's probably statistically that males are much better at compartmentalizing than females. Just, I would think on like a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you don't see a lot of males crying and throwing their old lady shit out of a second-story window.
I mean, whatever the case may be, there are some fucking psychopath males out there. They turn into stalkers.
Oh yeah. Well, back and forth, man.
Yeah.
We're not labeling anybody as crazy here, as psycho.
Yeah, no, I think.
I mean, we can draw up the hot crazy matrix if you want.
Yeah, I think that would be basically the same chart as like a maybe like a, for like the guy version would be like a hot jerk matrix.
Oh, yeah, probably.
You know what I mean? Just in general. The hotter a girl is, the crazier she's allowed to be. And the hotter a guy is, the more of a dick he's allowed to be by society in a sense.
That's
Castle shaking her head. So
yeah.
she's agreeing with us as a female
That's
voice.
your brother's theory, isn't it? Treat them like dirt and they stick to your shoe.
Oh, but yeah, so I think that's maybe, so the message we were talking about earlier with the toxic masculinity was, it was this person that was, they wrote this article and I fucking hate this. This is one of the biggest things that irks me the most these days is, this study found that the more masculine a man identifies as is, they're more likely to do this, or the more liberal a person is, they're more likely to do this, or the president has, a study has found that the president has a 90% approval rating.
By who is cabinet?
If you really dig into these studies, you'll find some of them are like, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them, you go look at, you're like, what the hell? So if you really dig into it, most people, they see it on their social media. Yeah. They read it and they go, oh, fucking toxic masculinity, or, oh, the president's doing great, or the president sucks, or this is the problem, or that's the problem. Well, if you dig into these things, it's, a survey of 300 people was done in rural West Virginia, or a study of 200 people was done in Times Square. Kind of fucking study or surveys that? Like, it's horseshit.
Yeah, the sample's pretty biased.
Yeah, it's a super biased sample, regardless of what it is. Like, most surveys you hear about are just super biased samples.
The survey says super biased.
Yeah. So, like, these things really irk me because it's not that those people feel that way. It's not, and like, I know there's a lot of people that, feel one way or the other, whether it's they love what Biden's doing, or they hate what Biden's doing, or they think that the moon's made out of blue cheese or barbecue spare ribs.
Would you eat it?
Yeah, I know I would. with a tall, cool Budweiser. Yeah. But like, those people are absolutely, deserved to have their opinions, and not that I have to agree with them, but I'm okay with agreeing to disagree. But when the media or people know that a lot of people are getting all of their news and their information from their Facebook or their Instagram or this, that, whatever, that's the person's fault. One, you should be, if you're only getting your information from one place,
shame on you.
Shame on you. But at the same time, then you have these outlets that are using that and manipulating that and taking advantage of that. And they're putting these survey fines or this, or that, whatever. And you can't say that the media isn't shaping how people think. And it's not, directing people down this fucking cattle chute of ideas.
I mean, is it the media, or are there certain people that control and own the media?
So
Do there certain people lean towards a particular way?
Yeah, so that's where even my mind goes. Like, there's being, if you really want to go down the rabbit hole. We don't have to go down the rabbit hole, but in general, like, the more you look at that and the more you realize what's happening and you're seeing this happen.
Well, I mean, dude,
I can go,
how many conservatives own a news station?
Well, not even the conservative, but to me, it's okay. Now you're starting to give validity to people that are saying that, like, China is trying to do this or Russia's trying to do that. Well, in a sense, we're kind of letting them. Have you watched The Dissident?
I haven't.
You should watch. It kind of ties into us because we'll go this. Have you ever heard about or seen the room that Saudi Arabia has for, like, their Twitter accounts and stuff?
I remember you alluded. I think you spoke about it a little bit.
Yeah. So, like, they have like a whole headquarters of people that have 10, 15, 20 Twitter, this, that, whatever accounts that are just, it's straight propaganda.
Yeah.
They're just, or they're commenting on people's posts. And if you go on Twitter or Instagram and you see these posts under different things, like, you're like, how many of these are just fake accounts?
Yeah.
And they're just getting people fucking stirred up.
Oh, dude.
Who's fucking shaking the jar, Tony?
Yeah, the black and the red ants.
Yeah. So it brings me all the way back to the toxic masculinity. This article I was talking about, it was basically men who assert traditional masculine gender. Let me restart that. A little tongue twister. Men who assert a traditionally masculine gender identity are less likely to say that they'll get the COVID-19 vaccine and that they'll wear masks, and that they go on to say that, like, they see people in person more often, blah, 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 whatever, and all these things, that it's kind of painting the picture that they're more dangerous when it comes to COVID-19, which we've also talked about, that we'll follow the science. The actual statistics are not conducive to what everyone's saying. But we want to dive into that. But then the last thing, this quote unquote journalist quotes, maintaining smart preventative habits like masks and limiting indoor gatherings is more important than ever, especially as deadlier and more infectious COVID-19 variants spread. Okay, I get it, the narrative. But we can't afford to let a thing like toxic masculinity continue to infect us. What the fuck is that? Like, I get it. You know what? Men that are beating women and saying that women should, be all whatever, this, that, whatever.
Quit bitching, get in the kitchen.
Yeah, like all those things, like, I'm down, like, but now you're using the pandemic to, like, say, like, oh, that guy's not wearing a mask. He's full of toxic masculinity and we need to get rid of it. What is this? Like, sounds like an awful lot like a country or a fascist leader that was actually a fascist leader back in the day, saying, oh, these people are damaging to our society. That's all it is now. You never hear about trying to, like, get together and help each other out. It's always name calling. These people are a danger to us.
couple things, man. The person writing that article, it'd be interesting to say, like, define toxic masculinity for me. And if you define it, why do you associate toxic masculinity with, something bad, I guess? Was your dad an alcoholic and he beat you and you considered that masculine? Was there something that you saw that made you say masculinity in general is something that we need to label as toxic? It'd be interesting to hear what they had to say regarding that. The other thing would be interesting is
genuinely what they have to say.
Not what you're putting in your article, like, off the recorder. The other thing would be these men that you think are, toxically masculine.
What the fuck does that even mean?
I don't know. I don't know. I just wanted to say it like that out loud to just see how it sounded. It sounded just as dumb as it was in my head.
I think that's point proven.
Yeah, no, for 100%. So these men that don't wear masks, or these men that don't subscribe to wearing masks, or that don't want to take the vaccine.
I've seen a lot of women that are
well, hold on a second. When you think of toxic masculinity, like, we think probably different than they do, but maybe, and I hate to assume or put myself in their shoes, but I feel like skilled trade is probably going to get a bad rap. I feel like guys that, walk around shirtless with guts, that are drinking beer, that are, working on car, whatever. That's kind of the image I get. So,
that's not the image I get.
I guess I think. What do you think? I guess let me.
I haven't watched the whole show, but a show pops in my head. It's that the show about the journalist back in the day. What's it called? It was a famous show.
Are you thinking like, woman's in the kitchen, fetch me my beer, I'm going to watch some TV, I don't want to be bothered for this hour? Like,
no, not even that. That's just fucking lazy and fucking fat. I was thinking more of, there's like the old school thought of like, oh, you can't do this job because you're not a man. And not a job that, not physically, because we've talked about the physical aspects of things. That's different. Like, and that's not just because like, I think you're lesser because you're a woman. Like statistically, most women aren't as strong genetically as men. So that's a whole different thing. So you have to be able to parse those things out. But like some of the men that think like, oh, this is a man's job. Well, if a woman can physically do it, then it's just a job that maybe stereotypically men do. And to think that like, like I think for a good, like a fighter pilot, for instance, I think probably like that's a job that it does require strength as much as people don't necessarily think it would. Because I've heard
the G's.
Well, not the G's, but I've heard like fighter pilots talk about like, who was that guy? The UFC referee that used to be a fighter pilot. He talked
I know
about,
you're talking about. That dude's cool.
yeah. But he talked about like how they used to have those do like strength test, because like some of the, when you're pulling G's in those jets, like you're pulling like 30 pounds on that yoke, or not the yoke, but the joystick. And like, you have to be able to do that. Well, great. You can do that. Like, but guess what? Like me, like I couldn't do that job because I don't have good eyes. And at this point, like I'm almost too big to be a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
Like I don't fit, you know what I mean? So like, traditionally that would be thought of as like a male thing. Well, I'm cool. Like, that's great. Like there's a lot of great female fighter pilots, but like a firefighter is one of those jobs where it's like,
better be able to throw someone that weighs 150 pounds over your shoulders. Down how many
or
flights
at least,
of stairs.
or at least try to
drag
a 250 pound person, because I'm 220, 230 pounds all day long.
As you give them a subdural.
Yeah. I want you to be able to drag my big ass out of the building. Like
Mark Smith.
Yes. Yeah. Like that was,
That was a great podcast.
yeah, like super interesting guy, but he was a fighter pilot, and he was he wasn't an angel. He was a Thunderbird, I think.
Okay.
I think he flew with maybe he did.
Yeah, I think he did the Blue Angels.
Was it the Blue Angels? It was one. I was thinking it was the Thunderbirds, but either way. But there's some jobs that like, so to me, I think of like toxic, long story there, but I think of toxic masculinity.
Thunderbirds.
Was it Thunderbirds? Okay. I remember some shit sometimes. I think of toxic masculinity as those guys that go, You can't fucking do this job. You're a woman. Get in the kitchen. Make me a fucking sandwich. Which sometimes is funny, like as a joke, like, where's my sandwich? Like, I get it. It's a joke, but like, no, like if she can physically do, if anybody can physically, he, her, she, if a fucking dog can do the job, doesn't fucking matter as long as the job gets done, period. It doesn't matter what your gender is, what you look like, if you fucking wear dresses or baseball hats or grow a beard or like to wear makeup and lipstick and have a beard, what the fuck ever. I don't care. As long as you can do the job. To me, it's when you can do the job and someone's like, you can't do that. You're not a man, or you're not this, or you're not that. Like,
is there such a thing as toxic femininity?
Oh,
For sure.
yeah. They just don't like to talk about it because, which I get, the historically oppressed.
So masculine traits that are considered toxic that would fall under toxic masculinity would be, the way I understand it and am reading it, is the traits that make a man different than a female, using those to their advantage. So acting aggressively, they're much larger. It says suppressing emotions, using or threatening violence, controlling others. So it's the traits that make men men, and then they just take it too far, right?
Okay. Well, yeah, but what about the traits that make everybody else who they are and take them too far? We don't hear anything about that. Like, which I get, males have been kind of, especially white dudes, have been kind of dicks and kind of, over the past, little bit of history, haven't made a great name for themselves. But I think we focus on just this. We always want a bad guy. We always, I think people just always want a specific thing to blame their fucking problems on and to be victims. The thing, maybe that's what it is. The whole victimhood thing is really becoming yeah.
Oh, I was just going to interrupt you and just read
Go
this.
ahead.
It just says, effects of toxic masculinity is when men actively avoid vulnerability, act on homophobic beliefs, ignore personal traumas, or exhibit prejudiced behaviors against women. This contributes to many larger societal problems such as gender-based violence, sexual assault, and gun violence. So we have touched base on this before, and my definition of toxic masculinity did not match the two of yours. I don't know if you remember that podcast, because we were talking about how, you have this dad who passes down the traits to the son, and it's that,
This is exactly like all three of us have just proved my point about these different definitions, and all people get upset about what this person says, and we don't even know what the hell toxic masculinity means to that person.
Right.
It's just
it's completely different.
It becomes this catch-all where the ants get pissed because someone's shaking the jar. And my question was, I wondered with those men that have the toxic masculinity, like, what jobs did they work, or how were they raised, or what region did they grow up in? And I wondered if there was any correlation between that and like not being educated enough to understand healthcare, or being educated enough to understand statistics and the fact that the virus, dies upon sunlight, the fact that it, these things. And I just wondered if that's maybe why they're like, well, I'm not going to wear a mask, or I don't work around an at-risk population. Statistically, I'm not at an age where I'm going to die. Why would I get it?
Yeah, so it's melding those two things together. I mean, that was the problem I had maybe with the article is, well, these are two very different things. Like toxic masculinity and the COVID thing, wearing masks or getting together in gatherings. Like, I agree that there's, even if we maybe not disagree, we don't define toxic masculinity the same way. I think we all essentially agree that toxic masculinity could be a thing, or is a thing. But trying to equate toxic masculinity with people who don't want to follow the COVID quote unquote guidelines and narrative. So it goes back to the root cause thing. and the root problem thing. In my mind, I look at those two things. Okay, we're equating toxic masculinity with not following COVID protocols. I'm trying to be real simple about it. Well, I don't see a connection between those two things at all whatsoever. I've seen more women get arrested for not following COVID protocols. I've seen a younger, she was probably in her 20s, girl get tasered and arrested at a high school sports event for not wearing a mask outside. I've seen a lady that was probably in her 50s get tackled and arrested inside of a bank for not wearing a mask. I haven't seen too many videos. I've seen videos of guys getting arrested too for not wearing a mask or whatever. But, you know, at the same, so I don't see a correlation there. Not even because a lot of times was it correlation and causation. You know, they can be connected, but not necessarily. Was it? I can't remember the saying now. But like, just because there's correlation doesn't mean it's causation.
They're not synonymous terms.
Right. But a lot of people like to make them synonymous when I need to find a new way to say it, but when it fits their narrative. So to me, we've talked about the COVID thing. Like the COVID thing for me, going back to the numbers, the math just doesn't make sense to me. But that has nothing to do with my masculinity.
Yeah.
Just the statistics don't make sense to me.
It has to do with my common sensibility.
Well, and even if you like don't even play that game, but still, like, so what I see when I see something like that, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm just on my high horse or something, but when I see a story from MSNBC, you know, obviously my first initial thought is to look at it and go, okay, this is going to be a very liberal story. Not even liberal, progressive. I'm beginning to learn the difference between those definitions. And I think I'm a very liberal person. You know, I'm even beginning to find myself leaning towards libertarian. Like, just get the fuck out of my business. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? But I see a story from a heavily progressive left, whatever, you know, news station, and they're saying, all right, well, now it's masculinity is tied to COVID problems. And I go, like, what are you trying to get at here? Because I can't connect those two things if you just look at just the statistics. So I find myself constantly battling and going like, man, like I really don't want to turn into this like fucking right winger, because those people are fucking crazy too. But God damn it, you Democrats aren't making it easy on me, because those two things, you know what I mean? Those two things just don't mesh. Yeah. And I don't see the correlation there.
Well, I want to know, when these people were surveyed, what options they got to choose to be completely masculine or mostly masculine. Okay, well, what were their other like options to choose from?
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, but I don't know too many masculine dudes who are gonna fill out a freaking survey.
God.
Yeah. So
without some sort of high incentive.
Did they like find all the people not wearing masks and decide, oh, I'm going to do a survey on these people?
That dude's got a beard and he's not wearing a mask.
Right. So, okay. So to my point, like in my mind, I don't think about any of that. I look at, okay, you have this person that is typically leans this way, writing a story about this that leans this way. Like, I don't think about like, oh, what are these? I do think about the people that are surveyed, and obviously like surveys, like we talked about, can be completely skewed. So I filter through all that, boil it down real quick in my mind, and I go, this person's just trying to force a fucking narrative. Like that's all. Like that's what they're trying to do. Like they're putting a narrative out there to make people angry at a certain class of people or at a certain person, because
I get, for what purpose? Like what do you think they're trying to accomplish by doing that? Just having more people hate more other people and just more like become more dissident or become more.
Well, and I think that's another thing too. I think a lot of these just my own like thought process and hypothesis. Maybe not hypothesis is the right word, but they're not doing it necessarily nefariously. I think a lot of people, they get grouped up and you get this group kind of thing going. And, if you're taking the journalism thing, you're a journalist that your boss is saying, hey, I want you to run this story. And you get kind of pushed and pushed and pushed. And everybody around you is kind of saying the same thing. So you start creating these stories and you're not thinking about outside the box. But if you do want to think outside the box, like think about anybody that's worked for, a tightly run organization that has a certain drive, then you have to play by the rules. And then everybody hears these things that sound good. Hey, we have to get rid of toxic masculinity. This is a bad thing. Like some of these people are really, okay, like, yeah, toxic masculinity is a bad thing. But when you start adding things to it and as you add this weird shit to it, people don't realize it necessarily. And then everything gets lumped into this, whatever it might be, toxic masculinity, racism, all these different things where it's like, no, like eventually people start looking at it and go, this has gone too far. But at that point, well, that's because you fit into the category. Well, how big are these categories? And people don't realize they're doing it at the time. I don't think most journalists or most people that are kind of purporting these ideas are doing it intentionally. I think it's almost been like they've been swept up instead of thinking for themselves going, wait, does this really make sense? But you know what? When I write an article like this, or I use these keywords, I get a lot of clicks and I get my articles published, or I get people that like my posts and I get
Yo, clickbaiter.
Social media, downfall of us all. I don't know. I kind of went on a rant there, but I look at that and I boil it all down real quick and I go like, these two things don't make sense. You're just trying to feed me a narrative. Maybe you necessarily aren't the problem. You're not necessarily constructing this, but this doesn't make any sense to me.
But it worked because you sent the post to the two of us. I clicked on it. I read it. I then spent 10 minutes reading It's not even that this journalist is a fucking idiot. It's that there are hundreds of people that agree and are now commenting about
Hundreds of Chinese and Saudis. Are they real people?
I don't know. I didn't go that far.
And that's where I get mixed up in that gray area. I think there's a bunch of real people that are seeing things and they're not realizing, going back to the definitions. They're not realizing that we are constantly we're in a space where definitions in words have no meaning anymore because everyone's just throwing around these words like fascism or Nazis. To call someone there's not too many words. There's some words out there, but there's not too many words that could be more offensive for most people than being called a Nazi. Because obviously the connotations of that. Now it just gets thrown around all willy-nilly. You're a Nazi. Did you fucking know what those people did? And that's a very deep issue too and very complex, but I think it's this weird mixing and this just everything's just been so scrambled now that nothing means nothing anymore. And we're just changing definitions and we're doing this and the internet has fucked everybody because it just gave too many people the ability.
Thanks, Al Gore.
Fucking Al Gore. He invented the internet, if you didn't know that.
Don't put your toxic masculinity. Don't manscape me. Or what is it? What is that called? Mansplain.
Yeah.
Don't you do that.
Manscape. I was like, this just turned into a dong salon.
That's
Please,
weird.
Manscape. Continue that. That's fine.
I just wonder how do we get out of it, Tony? How do you think? Sorry. How do we get out of it, Tony?
Catastrophe.
Going back full circle.
Catastrophe.
Circle back to that.
No, I sure hope not, man. I don't know. Think about people in general. Most people don't change who they are.
Yeah.
They just don't. You're who you are, and you don't change unless something drastic happens. Unless there's a life or death experience. Unless you lose someone that you cared deeply about, unless you get arrested and have your freedom taken away for an extended period of time, unless you lose a child.
Gut check moment.
Yeah. And I mean, I pray that those things, like something like that doesn't have to happen, but I don't know how we get out of it, man. I know that what we're doing right here, we're trying to help in any way we can. I know that what I do in my life for my job, like I try and, help in any way I can, and we try and encourage as many people as we can and put good energy out there. And then maybe if enough people put more good energy and more good energy, that I don't know that I truly believe that, but I hope that. And I guess if you still have hope, there's a chance.
Well, I think we are in and I think I forget this often. And I'm going to try to work on reminding myself of this more, is I've realized that through listening to some conversations, like Lex Friedman, like we talked about, I've gotten up to even listening to him at like 1.8 times.
So slow.
He's so slow, but he really is, like, if you listen to the words and really process them at some points, he's a brilliant guy that he's almost cute in a sense, where he really, all of his ideas and everything he brings is just from love. And he says it all the time. He's like, I really come from a place of love. And it's like, oh, you just want to I feel like he's probably like 5'5", and I just want to like pat him on the head. Like, oh, you're so cute, Lex, even though your IQ is probably like 3 times mine. if not more. But he does that podcast and he talks about a lot of different things. He talks a lot of geeky things because he's an artificial intelligence guy. But he comes from a place of love, and he's talking, and he does these long form podcasts too. And one of the biggest things I've realized from listening to some of his stuff is, as humans, we are in a place that we've never been through our technology and our ability to communicate. I think we're doing, a poor job at communicating on a lot of levels, but maybe we've always done a terribly poor job at communicating, and we're just realizing the capacity that we have now to communicate. So it's like,
bro, that's a t-shirt idea. Bring back smoke signals and carrier pigeons.
yeah, right. Those communication levels, like maybe they've always been really, really crappy. And we're just now realizing that our ways of communicating have been, transitioned into a form, social media and different things, that has such a higher capacity. And we are at such a poor level of fulfilling that capacity right now. So maybe, in a sense, maybe we only have to go up from here. That's
so maybe it's going to take time to evolve to that.
Yeah.
And once that evolution happens, then maybe people send more encouraging comments and less dick pics, and then the world will be a better place.
Yeah, we'll be better off. We found ourselves in this internet and technology phase and place in time that never even imagined being in.
It's a hopeful thought.
And maybe that's what it is.
I like yours way better than I like mine.
Yeah. Well, I just kind of thought of it right now. Like maybe that's like, this is, communication of love, trying to talk to people, trying to hang out and, have those discussions with people and communicate. And maybe that's why we're so frustrated, because we're just not fulfilling the capacity that we have.
Almost sounds like that one book that talked about love. What was it called? The Bible?
There's a lot of things in that book.
There are, but it goes back to that umbrella of love. And that's something I've referred to. And all these things are like taken care of if love's at the top.
Yeah.
Not to quote some man check and get all woo-woo.
Get all woo-woo. If you have the capacity because I think he threw an M in there though.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like the way he said it though.
Yeah,
man.
I don't think he necessarily intended to say it that way,
Compacity.
but I almost say every single time I say capacity, I hear compacity, and I'm like, son of a bitch, man, check. Like I know. But yeah,
Every time he'd say that though, all I thought about was the whistle goes woo woo.
woo, woo. We just need to attempt to fulfill the capacity of communication and love that we have.
I think we're trying. I mean, I know I'm trying, and I know we're trying with this.
Yeah, I may fail a lot,
Well,
but I'm trying.
I think as long as people are just trying,
Yeah.
then there's hope. I think when you stop trying, you're in a bad place.
Yeah.
Or when the masses stop trying, you're in a bad place.
Yeah. I think it can be scary if you get caught up in there's something weird and there's something special, not in a good way, about social media, about Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Like there's a lot of darkness on there. I think it goes back to the clickbait thing. But
yeah, I don't. It doesn't have to be used as darkness. So look
doesn't.
Look at some of the crazy positive things that if people, look at what is it, crowdfunding or what is that? Will they raise money for people that went through some catastrophic event or something?
No, for sure. But I think that it gives people just a room, because even if like you have a really good beneficial, like someone has something like really good, or even concerning like, hey, like this person's going through a tough time, and if that person's semi-famous or something like that, there'd be people inevitably.
Can you throw an M in there for me?
Get on there and be like, oh, fuck that guy. He's a piece of shit. Like, really? Like, how terrible is your life that that's what you spend your time doing?
And I think people, I'm not saying all people, but it's a lot of, I feel like those people that say those things just want to feel better about their own lives.
Yeah, but I think it just makes them feel worse.
Oh, I'm not saying
what I mean?
I'm not saying the end result like is going to be something different. I'm just saying I think they say those things because stuff's so shitty in their life that they want to put other people's lives down, and what that goes back to is more love.
Yeah, I think there's a time and a place.
I was just gonna say, but that love doesn't have to be fucking rainbows and
Not
clouds.
at all.
I think there's a
No,
lot.
you could just not
with-
call someone a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's a form of love.
Or say, hey.
or extreme honesty. Like that is love. You don't have to be an asshole when you say it, but
Whoa, that sounds a lot like fat shaming.
she's like, oh, should I go there?
well, I mean, if someone asks my opinion, I'm
You
not
want the
just,
megaphone?
I'm just not. I mean, I'm not gonna put on someone's. Your BMI is probably very high, which means you are not healthy. Like, I'm not gonna do that if someone asks me as a, professional in that area these days. I would be honest, but I just think that love covers a multitude of sins. However, everyone's definition of love is also very different, right? Everyone thinks, some people think that it's just rainbows and butterflies. And then in my family, it's extremely different.
Oh, there's tough love.
That's the only tough love was very important to me growing up, and it's how we're getting through with my dad.
Oh, you mean you didn't get any participation trophies?
There was fucking nothing. I guess it's just like saying love sounds great, but also there's, you have to love yourself enough to, if you're triggered by this person's stuff, have some self-control and don't get on there and read it. If this person makes you feel like a piece of shit, have some self-love and some self-control and either do something about it or don't look at their stuff. And that's just in general. That's not just online. It's just in general. So it's not just, we all just need to love each other. Well, no, we need to take care of our own shit, right? We need to take care of our own house, our own stuff, and then see what we can do.
Yeah, and for me, that's the umbrella. And it's not just loving everyone. It's just love in general. Like, you need to love yourself. You need to look in the mirror. And then all those things fall underneath there. Like a lot of what you said there comes down to respect. Like part of that love is part of that respect.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you have to enable or cater or anything like that. Like it could be a tough love, or it could just be not saying anything, like you said. Like maybe, if it's not true, kind, necessary, and encouraging, maybe you shouldn't say it. It's a Dan Leach quote right there.
Yeah. I think maybe that's an important distinction too, that just hit me, at least the way I think about it, is coming from a place of love.
Then that's another part of love. Yeah.
Like to me, and I think that's the key for me is you don't have to give awards and, loving this constantly. But if you come from a place of love, I can say, again, Tony, you're fucking up because I want you to succeed in this, that, whatever. It doesn't mean what I'm going to say is going to be easy for you to hear, but it comes from a place that's loving and like saying, hey, like I'm doing this because I care about you. Whereas it's that just saying someone's a fuck up just because, like, well, all right, well, did you give them like
an explanation?
Yeah. Did you give them something?
What did that do for them?
Yeah. Did you give them some
true?
way to not be a fuck up?
Was it kind?
Yeah.
Was it encouraging? Probably not. Was it necessary? Probably. But you should probably follow up with something.
Yeah, but I think just saying like, "Hey, you're a piece of shit," like that's not necessary. But I think there's a.
You should have gave Miles some back workouts.
Yeah, I know I totally fucked up there, but I think I
amended that.
Yeah, I amended that. But I think
I took a picture of Fred shooting shit off of our back porch, and I wanted to try to send it to Miles. I was like, I'm going to send this to Tony so that he understands like the masculinity of shooting shit with your gun off of your porch.
I think for the next month, it should be Toxic Masculinity Month, and we should just forward pictures to each other of the most ridiculous things and post them up here. Obviously, jokingly.
Right.
Before you said posting, are you going to send each other dick pics? Or because that's pretty toxic masculinity.
I don't see that.
This is a doc-free zone here, Cassie. Get those weird ideas out of here, damn it.
And on that note, I think it all comes full circle to just, in my mind, what we're trying to do here. Obviously, we've talked about having conversations open and honest, and things aren't always going to be easy or, without offense. But, man, if people can just be honest and allow people, I had a short conversation with somebody recently that said like they had posted some meme, and I was like, what's that mean? Because I don't get it. And I was like, I don't get what these three things have in common. Like, well, I just don't really like this person and that person or whatever. And I'm like, well, like, and then eventually they were just like, said like, oh yeah, no, I can totally appreciate that person's trying to do this and this, whatever. It was like, you realize even a person that has a, just a genuine outlook on things can be seen as somebody that is thinking something completely different than what they are. And as soon as you have a conversation with them, they're like, oh no, it's like, I just thought it was fucking funny. I don't really believe it. Like, or I don't really totally subscribe to like the concept, but I just thought it was funny. No. And I think maybe this is just my own fault that I've taken things too literally my entire life, and I see things that people say. And when you sit down, and I'm sure people have done the same thing with me, is you sit down with somebody, going back to Miles, having that conversation that's completely fucking ridiculous. And in the end, he's like, I'm just having fun. Like,
yeah,
just trying to make it through life, having fun. Like, I just hope we get out on the other end of it as a whole.
I hope so too. Time to evolve again.
I think we are. I think that's a good
time to get rid of some more of these vestigial organs.
Yeah,
we've evolved.
I think that's. I think we're doing that more than what we realize at this point as a whole.
The evolution or needing to evolve?
the evolution. There's change that is rapidly occurring that we are standing in the middle of, and I don't think we realize it as to the degree that it's happening. I mean, we might be evolving into nuclear fallout or something completely different. I don't know. You never know, but I think we're in the middle of something.
Yeah, I think of it like I said, those vestigial organs. So like the tailbone, the coccyx, the appendix. I can't think of what that muscle was called, but it had to do with arboreal like gripping. There was a third eyelid that was in here that we still have the remnants of it, and that they're still there and they can exist, but we've learned to, like, we don't need them anymore. Like, we've got to a point where we're past those organs, if you will.
Right.
And I feel like we need to get to that point right now. Otherwise, we're just going to fail as a whole.
Right. I think some of those things are good, but I think there's a lot of that discussion with. I think a lot of it's maybe that quote unquote organ. It's more psychological now. It's that fear of, hey, we don't have to run away from apex predators anymore for the most part. There's still some places you need to protect yourself from bears.
I saw that cougar video.
Yeah, and cougars and whatnot. Yeah, but like, I think
usually they're at the upper deck, but
right. That's a bar for anyone who doesn't know. But I think, in my mind, I think we're moving on to a different stage of the same kind of evolution, but now it's psychological.
Sure.
Where we can stop beating the hell out of each other. We can stop, forcing ourselves into these tribal groups because we don't have to protect ourselves from fucking wolves and animals, and we don't have as nearly the flight or response, like flight or fight response that we need to anymore.
But I feel like the predators are worse right now, man.
Well, they're ourselves.
They're bipedal predators.
Yeah. So I think that's, if we can realize that we don't have to fight ourselves. I don't know if that'll ever happen.
I'm ready to fight a pack of coyotes.
Be much better, probably. Than trying. I don't know. Maybe we can stop fighting each other and talk about it, since we have the ability.
Give peace a chance.
And the cognition to.
And the metacognition to understand our own emotions. Sorry, animals.
Right. Yeah. And on that note, I think it's what it is. Let's start realizing that we're a lot more similar than we think.
Amen and woman.
Jesus.